Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Mental Reps by Mind Quarters. I'm Kelly Mara. Before I was ever a runner, yoga had been a huge part of my adult life. I started practicing and teaching in my early 20s and eventually spent more than a decade owning and operating one of the first Bikram yoga studios in New England. Yoga was my practice, it was my profession, and in many ways, it was my sport. Running was not. And then someone handed me a ticket to the Boston Marathon, and there was just one problem. I wasn't a runner. But I also knew what an incredible opportunity it was, and I didn't want to turn it down. So I said yes. 5 months before the marathon, I signed up for my first training race, a half marathon. Around that time, I had learned about imagery through my sports psychology graduate program at Boston University. So before I ran that half marathon, I did something that I had never done before. I wrote out the entire race. Not just the finish, the whole thing. I pictured what I would be wearing, what the weather might feel like, the people around me, the landscape, the energy at the starting line, the sounds, the feeling of my feet hitting the ground, the sound of my breathing. I imagined the miles where I felt strong, and I imagined the miles where I probably wouldn't. I saw myself continuing through both. Before my body had ever experienced that race, my mind had already been there. And that experience taught me something I still think about today. Sometimes you have to believe it before you can see it. And imagery can help you do exactly that. We sometimes call imagery visualization, but I actually prefer the word imagery because you're not just creating a picture, you're creating an experience. You want to see it, hear it, feel it, notice your breathing, notice your body, feel the environment around you. Even notice the emotions that might show up. The more vivid and realistic the rehearsal, the more useful it can become. And there's real science behind this. Research into motor imagery has shown that when we vividly imagine movement, some of the same brain networks involved in actually performing that movement become active. Now, imagery isn't identical to physical practice, and it certainly doesn't replace training. You can't lie on your couch and visualize yourself into marathon shape. Trust me, I still had to run the miles. But research across sports has found that mental practice and imagery can improve aspects of performance, particularly when they're combined with physical training. And that distinction matters. Imagery doesn't replace the reps. Imagery is one of the reps. But I think there's another part of imagery that we don't talk about nearly enough. Most of us have heard some version of picture yourself succeeding, making the shot, scoring the goal, running your fastest race, nailing the presentation, acing the audition, standing on the podium. And there's nothing wrong with that. Picture those things. But I want you to picture something else too. Picture what happens 5 seconds after something goes wrong. You miss, you fall, you make the bad pass, you forget what you're going to say, someone gets ahead of you, the official makes a call you completely disagree with. The moment simply doesn't go the way you pictured it. Now what? Because that moment might actually be more important to rehearse than the perfect one. See yourself notice the frustration without getting consumed by it. See your shoulders reset. Hear the next thing you want to say to yourself. Feel yourself return to the moment and then go again. You're not imagining failure because you expect to fail. You're rehearsing recovery because you expect to keep going. And that's not just for athletes. You can use imagery before you walk into a field or a court, but you can also use it before you walk into a classroom, before an exam, before an audition, before a presentation, before a difficult conversation, before you try something that you've never done before. Anytime you find yourself thinking, I don't know if I can do this, imagery gives your mind an opportunity to experience some version of, maybe I can. Because imagery isn't pretending everything will go perfectly. It's preparing your mind for the experience you're about to enter. If you're a soccer player, don't only see the ball going into the net, feel your feet underneath you. Hear your teammates communicating. See the defender approaching. Imagine yourself making a decision. And maybe imagine yourself making the wrong decision. Then see yourself getting right back into the play. If you're standing up to give a presentation, don't only imagine the applause at the end, Picture yourself walking to the front of the room. Feel your feet on the floor. Hear your voice begin. And maybe imagine yourself losing your place for a second. Then see yourself pause, find your thought, and continue. If you're a runner, don't only imagine crossing the finish line. Picture the mile where your legs get heavy. Hear your breathing change. Feel the doubt creep in. And then picture yourself staying with it. That's imagery, not perfection, preparation. So here's mental rep 4. Before your next competition, practice, tryout, audition, presentation, or really anything that matters to you, give yourself 2 minutes. Close your eyes if you're somewhere you can safely do that, and put yourself there. What do you see? What do you hear? What can you feel against your skin? What does your breathing sound like? What does your body feel like? What emotion is there? Maybe excitement, maybe nerves, maybe a little bit of both. Now see yourself beginning, not perfectly, prepared. Picture yourself moving through the experience, making decisions, communicating, staying present. And then introduce one difficult moment. Something doesn't go your way. What happens next? See yourself notice it. Reset, respond, and continue. Then picture yourself finishing, not necessarily winning, not necessarily setting a record, not necessarily getting everything exactly right. Just finishing knowing that whatever happened, you showed up the way you wanted to show up. That's the rep. Long before I ever crossed a marathon finish line, I had to be willing to see myself as someone capable of getting there. My body still had to do the training, I still had to run the miles, but my mind had somewhere to go. And maybe that's one of the most powerful things about imagery. It allows us to visit a possibility before we've actually lived it, to rehearse it, to become familiar with it, and maybe even begin believing in it. We usually hear, "I'll believe it when I see it." But sometimes performance and life ask us to reverse that. Sometimes you have to believe it before you see it. See it in your mind, rehearse the work, rehearse the hard moments, rehearse the recovery, and then go do the work that gives you a chance to make it real. That's mental rep 4. And this is Mind Quarters. And your mind is your greatest strength.